You're listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. She is passionate, direct, and sometimes a little sarcastic, but always gives you what you need to succeed in business. Now, here's your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for listening to another episode of Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 22, Time Management Techniques for Every Personality Type with Brianna Berner. If you are an entrepreneur who wants to take consistent, massive, focused action in your business and life, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I'm looking forward to this episode because you're going to get to meet our guest, Brianna Berner. Brianna is a professional organizer, productivity coach, and mom blogger at spikedparenting.com. She helps moms be more organized and productive by creating systems to rock all aspects of their lives. I met Brianna virtually, actually, through a closed Facebook group. And I had seen what she was up to. And as soon as I saw that she had information and specialty and even a product all about teaching people about time management with their personality types, I jumped right on it. And I reached out to her and I asked her if she would be so gracious as to be a guest on our show. And she did. And I'm so thankful for that, because when we dive into this episode today, you'll hear that I think that it's going to be very eye-opening. For myself, whom is obsessed with time management and productivity, I even learned a lot. When listening in on my conversation with Brianna, you will discover a breakdown of the 4 different personality categories, how time management is affected by your personality type, the situations that make your secondary personality type take over, and where to take the test to find out what your own personality type is, and so much more. So let's dive right in and meet Brianna Berner. Hello, Brianna. Thank you for being a guest here on the Productivity Straight Talk show. I am so looking forward to speaking with you today, because when I heard about what you have to tell us, I couldn't even wait for this interview. I have always felt that our personalities have a huge, effect or influence on our time management, and more so over the last few years as I coach all different types of personalities. So I can't wait for you to jump in here and unfold some of the unknowns about how our personalities truly affect our time management. But before we dive right into the time management and personalities, Brianna, can you tell us a little bit about you and your business and what you're up to?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I am a professional organizer, a productivity coach, and a mom blogger over at Spiked Parenting. And I kind of developed my whole idea on using the Myers Briggs personality type when I was doing my own productivity coaching, because everybody did have their own unique problems. And I just felt like the Myers Briggs was the best tool to address a lot of the differences that I came across. And my business just kind of evolved from that. I knew that I wanted to create a course, and I didn't want it to be a one-size-fits-all solution because it wouldn't serve everybody. And I wanted to be able to reach more people. And so I found a way to integrate the Myers Briggs into that course. And that's the result of it, is the Be the Boss of Your Time course.
Okay, excellent. So I had found you in a Facebook group we're both a member of. And when you had mentioned this, I thought, oh my gosh, this is one of the things that I absolutely knew it had everything to do with the way that we approach time management. But I want to dive deep and to figure out what are the character traits that each person has and how that affects our personality. But before we do that, let's share with everybody what my personality trait is. So I took a quick and dirty kind of personality test at 16personalities.com. And I think Brianna was telling me that you can't truly know your Myers-Briggs personality type unless you get it done by a certified professional. Is that correct, Brianna?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So what's interesting is, while I truly believe, I'm sure that it does matter to get debriefed on your personality type, when I took this test, I was like, and yes, that's pretty much me. And what's funny is it sent me back this little picture. So I'm going to share with everybody. So they call me on the 16 personalities test that I took, they call me the executive. But what's funnier is it's got this little lady with her ruler and, she likes everything in order. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my son would be laughing. He asked me, why does everything have to be in order? And I guess that's my personality coming out. So I am a ESTJ.
Yes.
And then they threw on the assertive at the end, which I could have totally guessed, right?
Yeah.
So ESTJ. So can you unpack that for me and tell our listeners where they can find out what their personality type is, where they can go to get that information if they don't already have that?
Absolutely. So if you don't know your Myers Briggs type, if you want to get the test administered by someone who's certified to give it, you can go to the Myers Briggs website, and they have a search function to let you know where testing centers are located near you. If you just want to take an online quiz, I think that the 16 personalities quiz is one of the best ones out there. Just disclaimer that it's not the actual Myers Briggs, but it seems to be one of the most accurate ones. So then breaking it down, there are 4 different letters that you can get in your Myers Briggs type. So there are 4 different categories. The first is whether you're extroverted or introverted. And I think one of the most important things to note here is that doesn't mean whether you're shy or outgoing. That looks at where you get your energy from. So if you get your energy from looking inside yourself, or if you get your energy from being around other people.
Okay, well, I'm glad you clarified that for sure. So I happen to be an extrovert, so I thought, of course, that's what that means. But because I'm an extrovert, I'm sure that's why I get energy from other people as well.
Yes, absolutely. So that looks at where you get your energy from. So then the next one is the sensing versus intuitive. And that looks at how you process information. So sensors process information by looking at the world around them right here and right now using their 5 senses. And then intuitives are more future thinkers. They plan ahead with that big future end goal in mind. And they look at different connections and patterns. And that's how they do that. So then the next one is thinking versus feeling. So feelers look at, this is how you make decisions. So feelers make decisions based on how that decision will affect other people, whereas thinkers make decisions based on the cold, hard facts. And then the last one is judging versus perceiving, and that looks at how you live your life. So judgers are the planners, the one they would like to know where they're going, how they're getting there, and what they're doing when they're there.
I'm glad that you shared that too, because this was eye-opening. I was embarrassed to share my stats that came back. I'm 90% judger. And I was like, am I going to share that with people? I don't really think I'm that judgmental.
Yes, it does not mean you're judgmental. It just means that you are very, very organized with your time.
Imagine that, right? Now I'm upset I didn't get 100%. No, I'm just joking.
I'm like 83%. So I'm not quite I'm a little more relaxed with mine. But then, so on the other end of that spectrum are perceivers. And these are the type of people that just like going with the flow. They like keeping their options open and seeing what comes up. They don't want to commit to something just in case they want to make any last minute changes. So, and an important thing to recognize there is while you and I are both productivity type people, we're very much on the judging end of the spectrum, that it's completely okay to be a perceiver. And a lot of people function quite well with that trait. It's just a matter of acknowledging that that's how you like to work and then finding a way to work around it.
I like that. So finding how each personality or character trait serves you or doesn't serve you and then working with that.
Absolutely.
Now, I could tell you that my 90% judging, we're going to call it judging, my 90% planning is sometimes such a negative in my business, right? Because I have to work towards being towards the middle where I'm more flexible and go with the flow. And if someone were to cancel on me or change plans, that it's not going to get me so out of sorts that the rest of my day is not productive. And so I really try to focus on getting to not being so judgy. Well, meaning not so much planning.
Yeah, just that flexibility.
I'm going to use myself as an example because I'm sure there's other people, but some of my listeners are like, oh my gosh, I'd give anything to be a planner. But the truth is that too much being a planner, you're not an executor.
Exactly.
So I'm also working with my personality to ensure that it's best serving my life and both my business.
Yeah. And so, with the course, I highlight the strengths, but I focus on the weaknesses and how to work those in. And for us planning types, especially those of us who are sensors rather than intuitive type, we don't see that big end picture. It's hard for us to envision a lot of the times. So we get so caught up in the planning that it becomes a form of procrastination, and we never really get started unless we just accept when good enough is good enough and just push ourselves to do it. So it's important to recognize that, or we would just be sitting here planning ourselves in circles.
Right. Okay, so you're saying sensing is more of the planner side as well.
Well, you're planning in the here and now. People with the intuitive trait are planning with that big end picture in sight. So on the flip side, one of the weaknesses there is they skip over a lot of those little details that you and I may stress over. And those details are generally the foundation of what they have to build upon to get to that end goal. So if you just skim over those because you're just so excited to work toward your future, then you have to spend more time later on fixing those, because it's always more time consuming to fix something after the fact than it is to prevent it.
Yeah, so I'm obviously more sensing, right? So let's see what my score was for sensing. Okay, 84%. So I'm 84% sensing, and I actually have this innate ability to see like the bigger picture of like where either I am or specifically a client wants to be in a year or 5 years. And I'm like, and then this is everything you need to do down to a daily schedule. And here's your habits. And if you break it down and you do just a little bit every day, or sometimes they come to me with these large projects where they have these great ideas, but have no idea to back it out from Z all the way to A. Like, how do I get there? What's that roadmap? And I tend to have that natural capability. But what's interesting is that I have more of that capability for my clients than I do in my business, because I have a different perspective on my business. I'm kind of like in my business more so, as this is definitely a strength I use with my clients to see way far out with them, but then I can break it back and say, did you think of this? And how is this? And, you might be a little bit too aggressive because I know what your time restraints are. And so just working with them based on their big dreams and hopes of what they're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. And I think that separation that you just mentioned, that may tie together with the third trait, the thinking versus feeling, because looking at your results, you scored a 54% on thinking. So you're pretty much toward the middle right there. So you really could be either one of them. So it sounds like for your clients that you're using that sensing ability that you have to plan out the here and now to get to where they want to go based on the facts that you gather from them. And with your own business, you're so involved with it and you're right there, you're doing the work yourself, that you may have that feeling attribute influencing that more, where you're just more invested in it.
Right. Now, you were sharing with me before we started recording that you might have a primary and a secondary personality type. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and what influences those?
Absolutely. So, and it stems off what I was just saying. So everybody has their nature type, and this is just that type that you naturally are without thinking about anything. So if you were to take the Myers Briggs test, you would just go through and just answer with your first instinct on every single question. But then we're all going to have multiple personality types based on stuff that's happened to us in our life, what's going on right now, what's going on in the world, and where we want to be going. So like I said, the feeling, thinking, how you're right on the cusp of that, and you could switch back and forth between either of them. The same thing is I'm on the feeling end of the spectrum, but I am closer to the middle as well. But when I'm working on my own business, I notice that I switch from an ISFJ to an INTJ. So I'm able to just get more hands-on and look at the numbers and make decisions based on that and put those decisions into practice based on that. I just put on my business hat to do that. And that's something that I had to consciously work on and make myself be more that way. So I know that that personality type for me came from making myself be that way. So really, it's possible to switch back and forth between any, if you're an 80%, 84% on one, you're probably not going to switch to the other one. But, if you're between 60% or so, you can probably pretty easily just flip back and forth between those, depending on what's going on and what you're working on at the time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also say that it's changed over my lifespan because when I was younger, I was much more feely, right? And I was less logical. I went through for emotion and made decisions based off of emotion. And I feel like my business and my husband have both grown me up. My husband's a very logical person. And so if we're having any kind of discussion about anything, if I bring feelings to the situation, that doesn't go very far as logical. So I've really exercised that muscle of logic and coming with the reasoning behind what I feel and think rather than just how I'm feeling, like just spouting off with that. It's definitely served me well in my personal interactions and communications and relationships, but it's also served me well in my business because one of the things that I often get from my clients is that maybe they don't feel like working that day, or they don't feel like they're in the mood or the flow to do X, Y, and Z. And if you fall prey to the way you feel every day and you're not taking action and you're not reasonable to say, if I don't take these action steps, I'm never going to reach my goal, then you're kind of letting one of, I would say, maybe a character trait that's not going to serve you as well for aggressively going after your goals or being productive and being good with your time.
Absolutely. And, that's something that perceivers struggle with a lot because if you are on the perceiving spectrum, especially those that are the complete opposite of you and I and say 90% perceiver, they only want to work on something when they want to work on it. And so one thing that I actually put in the course to address that is splitting your to-do list between high intensity and low intensity tasks. So that way, if it's a working time for them and they have to get something done, but they're just not feeling it, to just pull one of those low intensity, mundane tasks that they don't really want to do and just get it done. That helps overcome that. So that way they're still making progress and still working on stuff. But someone with that strong of that perceiving trait isn't just going to naturally recognize that they have to work on something when they don't want to work on it. And so it's understanding that in themselves and then finding a way to work around that.
Okay. So one example that's coming up for me is that you had said the first category is whether extrovert or introvert. Doesn't mean if I'm shy or not, but rather where I gain my energy. And I know that I gain energy from people. And so I do my high value focused lone work time. I try to do first thing in the mornings. And I always work back ending my day with appointments. So if I can get a 2 o'clock, a 3 o'clock, and a 4 o'clock appointment with somebody, that is the best place for me to be working with somebody or have a meeting, because I would normally be lower of energy because I'm go all day. And then I know that I get like that face-to-face time, it refuels me. It doesn't matter how tired I am or maybe a lack of focus for that day. Like I get somebody in front of me and I'm like, that's my energy. Like I'm focused. And it took me a while to figure that out. And I didn't really realize that had to do with my personality as so much as maybe trial and error, like realizing, oh my gosh, I'm dragging around 2 o'clock. And then I go to a 3 o'clock meeting and I'm on like nothing ever happened. And it's because the people are around me that I feed off of.
Right. Absolutely. That's where you get your energy from. It's going to refuel you and keep you going. Whereas me, I think I don't have my results in front of me, but I think I'm like 89-90% introverted. So for me, when I start feeling drained, I have to go do something like in my head. That's usually when I'll do like brain dumps or I'll mind map something out just to organize my thoughts, and going inside of my own head is how I re-energize myself.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. Because you're telling me this and I'm gritting my teeth. I'm like, there's no way I would be doing mind mapping or brain dumping at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So this is really good. Now, this is why it's so important. Like I've been a huge proponent in that we need to make our lives and our schedules and our businesses serve us well and be in alignment with who we are authentically. So if I were to tell you, you need to do your highest and best activity first thing in the morning, which I do recommend because there's a lot of things that can get in your way. But if that highest activity is energy draining, you want to make sure you're aligning that with your schedule, right? So I guess if it's energy draining, you would definitely want to have it when you have highest energy, which is perhaps in the morning.
Yep.
Okay. So like my highest and best activity is often either working with clients or doing podcast interviews. So I'm actually better off doing mine in the afternoon than if I were to do it first thing in the morning where I haven't drawn energy upon people. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, like when I'm writing content and I'm doing focused work, I need to do that first thing in the morning because I am 100% focused and I have the best energy, right when I'm starting my day. So this really all makes sense. So we talked about the difference between extrovert and introvert and how that affects time management. And let's do sensing and intuition. So I obviously was the sensing. How does this affect someone that is more intuition based? How does time management affect that?
Well, so the sensing versus intuition is on how you process information. And so I think this has a lot to do on your planning and your goal setting. So for time management, an intuitive type person is looking ahead at the future. And like I said, the main thing that I address on that is not skipping those little steps. It doesn't have a direct relation to the time management in an action-based way. It's on setting those goals. And so when you're setting SMART goals or prioritizing your to-do list, a sensor like us, we can pinpoint those little details. And like I said, we can over-obsess about them, but an intuitive type person just wants to skim over them and get to the good stuff, I guess, and just dive right in. So for the intuitive type people, I just stress the importance of taking the time to at least highlight those little tasks, making sure that they're smart so that way they can see how they play into that bigger picture. And then when they get that feeling that they want to skip over them, reminding themselves of how they play into that big picture so they don't do that.
Okay, this is great because I feel like I have a lot of intuitives in my life, whether they're clients or other friends that are business owners. And so they're big dreamers. They think big. There's nothing that's going to get in their way between where they're at and where they're going, including stepping over the details it gets to get there. And so for some small business, well, for businesses in general, but small businesses, this is where you leave the debris behind you for like your staff to clean up. And that could be really hard on your business where you got these big goals and you didn't think of any of the how it's going to happen. Like that didn't bother you at all because it's so much fun to think about where you're going, not how you're getting there.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. And so I guess my advice, I don't know, I'm sure that you have tons of great advice in your course, but I mean, my advice would be to make sure that if you're hiring staff or an assistant that you would hire to complement your strengths or weaknesses. And you need to be around someone that's a sensor so that they can go and identify all those details and slow you down to maybe see it from that perspective instead of just where you're going.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. I mean, the Myers Briggs is typically used in business settings to identify people's strengths and weaknesses and for businesses to make sure that they have the right people in the right position. But time management is always just like a bullet point in the whole scheme of things. And to me, that doesn't really make sense because how can you be an effective employee, CEO, whatever hat you wear there if you don't know how to manage your time? And you can't apply this to your own time management skills. And that's why I kind of extracted that information from it and put it all together in one package.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. Now, so if I were to take your course, I'm like so excited about this. And I'm thinking how all my clients need to take this, this test because it's going to help me coach them. But your course is going to be able to help them do it on their own too, if they want to figure it out. Because the truth is that time management can be improvement rather of time management can be one of those things that keeps showing up year after year on your New Year's resolutions, that it's something that we attempt to always get better at, but if we're not focusing on it or worse yet, doing it how everyone says we should be doing it, then we're hitting our heads against a wall. And why your content resonated with me so well, Brianna, is that I was like, I never want to tell my clients there's only one way to do something. I want to honor who they are. And if you have somebody coming to time management and struggling with it, and they leave saying it's all me, it's not all you. It has to do with your character traits. And like you said, work with it and make sure that you're maximizing on your strengths and compensating for your weaknesses and that you give them some of those tools and resources to do that.
Yep, absolutely. And the final module of the course is a maintenance module on maintaining what they've learned in the course going forward. And one of the things I stress on is that it's a constant work in progress. You're always going to be refining your systems, and things are going to happen in your life that change the way that you need to manage your time, and learning the fundamentals of it and learning how you react to all of that are the keys to being able to adapt to these changes and continuing to be able to modify your systems to effectively manage your time going forward.
I love that. So what is one of your favorite traits for someone like me? Okay, so what am I? Well, I'm trying to remember. ESTJ. So what are one of your favorite recommendations to make sure that I'm staying on top of my time management?
Well, so this is pulled straight from my course. I put as an ESTJ, you are a phenomenal planner, but you start to procrastinate if you don't have all of the information or if the task or goal is unclear. Because you value hard work and reliability, you sometimes take on more than you can handle, and you don't always want to ask for help. You want me to continue? I have two more.
No, please do, because this is so me for anyone that's listening. And go. This is like having you like walk into my closet, okay, people? This is hilarious. Okay, so I have a need for making things perfect. I'll procrastinate. Okay, go ahead. This is all true.
The next one, unexpected disruptions and emergencies stress you out and throw you off. And then an interesting one that we haven't really touched on is that when you're stressed, you may flip to your inferior function, which is introverted sensing, making you hypersensitive and act out of character. And this is true for every personality type when you just get overly stressed out. And I don't know if you've ever recognized this in your life or even a period of your life where you were stressed out and just acted completely not out of character, but not in your normal. You know, an example I use is my 20s. I was completely flipped to my inferior function, just figuring out life and all of that. And looking back now, I was like, God, how did I even manage? Because it just doesn't fit with my natural type. But studying up on the personality types and seeing how when you just don't really know what you're doing, it's completely natural for those inferior functions to surface. And it's not that those inferior functions are bad. Yours is introverted sensing, and I am that. It's just that you don't know how to act within that trait.
Because it's new. It's not my normal place that I reside in. Yeah.
You don't have the strengths of it necessarily. You just play out all the weaknesses.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, absolutely. So like when you were saying that the introvert, so meaning there are going to be times that I do not gain energy from other people. Absolutely. There are some times that I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. Like I need quiet time. Some days I do maybe 6 or 7 kind of back-to-back appointments, like every hour on the hour. And those days I just like give my husband the heads up, like I'm not going to be talking when I come home. I just need some time to like, decompress and then transition into my home life. But that doesn't happen very often, but I get it. And then when things are maybe out of sorts personally, because in coaching that comes up a lot too, is maybe you're going through a divorce or your business is really not financially doing well. Now it's a super stressed situation. So you're not in your normal character traits.
Absolutely. Or even, when your normal character traits, like how you and I are both the sensors and how we like to overplan stuff. And I know that I went through a period where that overwhelmed me and I didn't think I could do something unless I could sit down and do it perfectly. So I procrastinated everything and I was essentially a perceiver rather than a judger. And I didn't know how to act as a perceiver, so I just really never got anything done. And understanding it now, it was just because I was so much of a perfectionist that I was preventing myself from going about my day-to-day life as I should have been.
So that actually reminded me of how I've compensated. So I think this is important for our audience to hear this. So I am so much of a planner. And I'm not saying that anything I put out in the world has ever been perfect, but I always strive to do that. And I could kill myself trying to do that, meaning not get anything out in the world. And my assistant's been with me for nearly 4 years. And sometime back, I empowered her to have a code word that said, when it's good enough, like you need to just look at me and say, it's good. It's okay. Let's go. It's done. Let's go. And I empowered her because I'm like, I'm doing it again. And she'll laugh. And I'm like, no, you got to point it out. Like by the time I notice that I'm over planning something, it's way overdone. So I've empowered her to like give me like the look that just says, you know what? It's good enough. Let's get it out. It's good, Amber. Move on. It's okay. And that's how I've been able to balance my extreme 90% planning, judging personality trait in that matter.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, well, excellent. So if our listeners want to learn more about you and the course that you have launched about how time management is affected by personality, and it sounds like they're going to get some really good strategies based on their unique personality type, because if they've been hitting themselves, like I said, against the wall, and maybe they're doing it in something that's at odds with their natural personality, I'd love for them to get, more information and resources. So how can they do that, Brianna?
I have a link to the course page at spikedparenting.com. It's right there on the top. The name of the course is called Be the Boss of Your Time, a time management program for each personality type. And I have an entire page where I go through what the course offers, a lot of FAQs on it, and what you can expect to get. And then the course is hosted through Thinkific, and I offer the first and the second modules completely free at part of the free trial. So the second module is where I go over the different personality types and the strengths and weaknesses of each, and then what they need to do to learn how to manage their time with those strengths and weaknesses in mind. So like I said, those are all completely free to watch at that spikedparenting.thinkific.com.
All right, Brianna, so that is quite the long URL link. And so I want to make sure everybody that wants to get a hold of you and find you and can find this great course can. And so your course will definitely be linked in the show notes. And the show notes can be found at theproductivityspecialist.com/022. Again, that's /022. Should you not have gotten to jot that down. Thank you so much, Brianna, for being here today. Thank you for sharing your insights on how different personality traits affect our time management. And more so, thank you for honoring everyone that's listening, everyone that you're serving, and saying, you know what, whomever you are, whatever personality type you are, you're perfect the way you are. But should you want to work with your strengths and weaknesses to get better results, I've got the solution for you. So thank you very much, and make it a productive week.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, well, that's another episode of Productivity Straight Talk. Why I have loved having you listen today on this episode, I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on what you learned today, what are you willing to take action on? Was there anything that made you think, that's why I do what I do? Or perhaps you realize that there's a particular personality trait that might be considered a challenge with improving your productivity that you really want to focus on improving. The truth is that I shared in this episode some ways in which my personality trait is not ideal for action taking and growing my business. And that's because I'm 90% judger. That was a big aha for me. Maybe the label and finding out that I'm on such an extreme, but it wasn't surprising to me that I am such a planner. And so over the years, I've had to compensate for that in myself and my business to ensure that I'm really focused on not just the planning aspect of my business, but the action-taking part of my business. And so what that means is that by knowing my personality and my natural traits, I'm able to work with them and have my strengths work for me, and then also focusing on what could be perceived as a weakness to level that out and really get after it in my business. Well, that was my takeaway, was that it was a really good reminder that I need to be in the lane of action taking more than planning. And the good news is that over the last several months in my business, I have been a big action taker, and it feels really good because I'm getting the results. but it doesn't necessarily feel comfortable. And I think that that's kind of what analyzing our personality is that if I was just in my comfortable zone, I would be a planner all day, every day. But there's some personality traits that hate planning, and that is so uncomfortable for them, and they just want to take action. I think this is a little bit about knowing ourselves better so that we can really focus on those areas in which we want to make improvements on. My commitment is to stay in the lane of taking action balanced with proper preparation. So how about you? What are you committed to taking action on? What are you committed to making a change? Sometimes it doesn't need to be huge, life-changing changes to make a big impact. It could be a little change of awareness and making a different decision on a more consistent basis. I urge you to make that commitment to yourself, and if you have an accountability partner, share it with them. If you want a little more accountability or you don't have an accountability partner, I've got a great place for you to come, and that is our private Facebook community. I call it Productivity Straight Talk Community, where entrepreneurs just like you are in there supporting each other and encouraging each other to take massive action in their business. And you can join our private Facebook community for free by going to productivitycommunity.com. I've created this as a place that I can also have interactions with those of you that are listening to the show or following any of my work. I really wanted a place that you can land and find people that are just like you going through similar challenges and feel that support and get little extra nuggets and collaboration and all of those types of things that we can do in our private community. If that interests you and you really want to take your productivity to another level and announce what you're committed to based on this show, please jump into our private Facebook community. And for those of you that are already in the community, I can't wait to hear what you're committed to because I know you're listening and I know that that is a place in which you feel super comfortable to share. What did you learn or what are you learning after taking your personality test about yourself that you're willing to take action on and improve so that your business is more profitable? All right, guys, so that's all I have for you today. That's my straight talk. And until next time, have a productive week. Want to reduce your stress? How about grow your business? Wish you had more time for family, friends, hobbies, and everything else you enjoy? Think you can't have all three? You're wrong. You just need to stop screwing your productivity. Text SCREW to 444999 to receive your free copy of 10 ways you're screwing your productivity. Or you can download your free copy at theproductivityspecialist.com/SCREW, SCREW.